Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to Platte Valley Long Play. My name is Skyler. I am a local musician in the Denver area. I am also the founder of an up-and-coming, what I've been referring to for lack of a better term, as a label known as Amplified Personas. It's not really a label, it's not really not a label, it's just kind of a concept at this point, but we are working through it. Speaking of working through it, we have just worked through releasing a fantastic EP by my dear friend Aeon. They also go by aeonexit. You can find them on socials as such. They were formerly known as Causer, but for all intents and purposes here in this interview, we will be referring to them as holymoonlightblade, as that is the name of the project that they just debuted on January 29th via Amplified Personas. I wanted to sit down with them for a little bit here so we can talk about this debut EP titled Faux Control and get an inside scoop on what they did, how they did it, and why you should be paying attention to that EP that we are streaming here and we have in rotation on Platte Valley Long Play. So, like I said, this is Aeon. Aeon, would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, hi, I am Aeon, and I'm a producer. I make music. I made music, as you said previously, as Causer, which was like really heavy industrial punk, and I've just been making like weirdo oddball music on my laptop. And Holy Moonlight Blade is kind of just like one new version or vessel of that. So yeah.
Cool. So with that being said, would you be able to tell us a little bit more about Holy Moonlight Blade as a concept and how this EP that you titled Faux Control came to be?
Yeah, I really was just like kind of giving myself a break with like all like the beat heavy music that I was making. I like really focus in with my process, and I find I definitely fall under like the control freak category at times with any project that I do. So especially with aeonexit, because it's so like intense and meticulous sound design wise. So this kind of exercise, as I guess it started, was just like with a bit of like self-witnessing and self-inquiry about my tendency to be a control freak. So I really wanted to intentionally like work with like as little elements as possible and either lean into being really playful and kind of carefree and just explorative with certain settings or sound design choices, or like mixing decisions. And then in other instances, I'd be really intentional about how into it and how meticulous I'm going to get with like just one element, and kind of danced between those two. Like it was just like what I've been calling a lot of control play, and being really playful with how I'm going about making these things while also using very minimal elements like grainy textures, pad synths, and like noise, like, and that's it. So yeah, it was just a fun exercise, and it was kind of just like a joke. And I was going back and forth with Skyler, with Amplified Personas and Ethereon as like a sounding board, and just like, hey, these have no home. Should we just make one? And we did. So it all just kind of happened really organically. There was like no like story behind it. It was just like, this is the drone weird stuff, and it's done now, I guess. So like, let's go.
Yeah, it was really perfect, and that was one really nice thing that I remember when we had started talking about this, was you were like, I think I'll just put it out and not do anything. It's kind of like this offshoot thing, and I was like, well, speaking of offshoot things, I'm kind of starting this offshoot thing. Maybe we can use those offshoot things together, and it just like, It felt like it lined up perfectly. So I'm really glad we got you on board for that one.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I was really aligned. Like, the tangents, like there's the musical tangents that we go on as artists, and to give that like the one thing we were intentional about was just giving it proper, like, if we're going to do this is what it's going to look like and how it's going to go, and we want it like this way. Let's maybe play with this idea, but let's get it done and out there. And so it's just like kind of like the fruits of being intentionally delusional about being a musician today.
That's so spot on. And like you said, like just doing it and like getting it out and like making it happen. That's kind of been our MO with this whole thing, right? And it's just it's worked out really, really well. And I think it's kind of like I said, the synchronicity is there because that even was what we talked about with amplified personas. You know, it's that whole concept there is exactly what you were describing with faux control and your whole, you know, intention behind that. So it just felt like we had to work together on this, you know? It was fantastic.
Absolutely.
So, for people who haven't really heard the EP yet, that has been streaming here on PVLP, Platte Valley Long Play, you've described this EP to be a little bit of aggressive ambient or even dynamic drone. And I love that you've been describing it that way because those are like, it's so playfully paradoxical to describe it that way. And I personally love that as far as those genres go, you know, aggressive ambient, it's kind of counterintuitive. Dynamic drone is not what you're expecting, but would you be able to elaborate on why you use those terms and what those concepts mean to you a little bit more, maybe?
Yeah, I love a good paradox.
You gotta keep the feet warm.
Right? Gotta keep them guessing. But yeah, I just liked it because it was pretty accurate in terms of like the attitude, more so than like even being sonic signifiers of like what you're about to hear. Like it's definitely accurate and it's definitely on brand, but also just playing with those like paradoxical terms is the entire attitude. Like that just is, that's the voice that where this is coming from. And I don't know if it's just because like I'm an English major, but I just really love wordplay and like and being, like you said, really playful with it. If anything, like that was sort of more subconscious. Like I probably did think about it, just not as intently. Was the sort of double-handed like nature of things, like being faux control, like it's fake, but also it's faux as in like an article of like faux clothing, so you can almost like wear the control, and it's not so much, you know, just like all these different ways of reframing how you say the words or like the meaning behind them is it's kind of all up for question, and I leave it that way. Like I like having words like that and branding and leaving it all up to like multiple meanings, or like, you know, I guess leaving it up for people to kind of decide what it means is really the goal.
Definitely. And I think that carries through, and it's so interesting to me how you're talking about the wordplay and kind of like the dynamics of that and how that works. And I just think it's so cool that for this EP, for Faux Control specifically with Holy Moonlight Blade, you were able to say so much without any words. And I think that's really cool because the track titles and the concept behind it all carries through the music itself without any words being said. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic thing. So I'm going to jump forward a little bit, and I was going to say, since we're talking about genre here, if somebody's hearing a genre like this, or specifically what you did, or what you are doing with Holy Moonlight Blade and what you did with Faux Control, if somebody's hearing something like this for the first time, where would you recommend they could find, or what are some other artists you would recommend that they should listen to, or where should they kind of start to look? You know, like a drone ambient experimental noise 101 crash course, just real quick, you know?
Yeah, it's such a big world. It really is, and like I'm very grateful to be in the age of internet. It can be a really bad thing, but in terms of finding cool music, it's a really good thing. But like literally, Bandcamp is a great tool. Like you can search by genre. You can kind of like find pretty well curated like groupings of artists that are in similar genres or stuff. So like if you just wanted to search by taglines of like drone or noise or experimental ambient, any of that is a good way. Some of my favorite artists that specifically I was listening to, I guess, while making all of this would be Cruel Diagonals on Beacon Sound. really cool. Like it's all vocals, but it's all through Ableton, and like the vocals are stretched and warped, and it's really inspiring.
That's a wild one. I remember when you showed me that one the first time. I was just kind of like, what do you mean?
It's still that way. It's just like it's mind blowing. But even like I guess what could be called OG stuff like Coil is like a big influence. Some of like the Throbbing Gristle stuff, like with like the repetitive kind of droning dirges of noise.
Exactly, totally.
That those would be places that I would start. There's a lot of really great old stuff to reference and like find like through YouTube or Bandcamp or whatever, but there's so much cool new stuff happening. And like even just like in Denver with like the weirder electronic stuff, you know, there's a lot of like cool noise musicians. My friend Sick Tisk is really inspiring, specifically with just like the power electronics and like harsh ear splitting textures. Like I really push to try to be heavier than Sick Tisk on this. So love you, Gertrude. Sorry, but I wanted to achieve that. So yeah, lots of good stuff.
And that like I'll even use that as a segue with you mentioning the Denver scene here. That's one thing that Kyle has really curated at Platte Valley Long Play here. Like so much of the music it's very local focused, and the things that are very soundscapey, very experimental, and like even the ones that aren't, you can see these pieces that exist and bleed over into various parts of the scene, which is really cool. So, you know, you can keep an ear out on Platte Valley for Aeon stuff here, Holy Moonlightblade, but keep listening for everything else that they've curated. It's fantastic. With that being said, you know, what would you specifically like to see more of in the scene, and whether the scene is local here in Denver or broader across the internet, like you mentioned? Like what do you hope for, whether that's musically or community oriented sort of thoughts? Like, if any, like what kind of hopes do you have for that?
I just hope that we can continue to do it, given the state of things. We don't need to go into that, but like I do genuinely hope that we can continue to gather, and there's always going to be space for weird things to happen. I know, like I have these like really lofty goals about like changing the idea of what a performance can be, and like really getting playful with like what a show looks like, and you know, blurring the line between like artist on stage and audience off stage, and like just getting experimental with the way shows are done is something that I would love to see, because everything's changing, and whether we like it or not, like DIY music is going to change. And I think instead of like waiting around for things to kind of just come up and we have to sort of course correct or react to it, like let's just be ahead of the curve. You know, I know I talked with you, Skyler, about like sit down electronic shows or like sit down noise shows, and like you know, like really demanding more from a crowd.
Sure.
And I love thinking about stuff like that. So hopefully more people are thinking, if anything, I guess is like my big hope. Like, you know, I can't say for better, for worse, what we should do, you know, but like, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to see just new things, just people trying different stuff out. And of course, just like being nice and being like a decent human, like baseline.
Actually feeling like a community that's lifting each other up and not dragging each other down, crabs in a bucket style, you know? Yeah,
like the real just like meat and potatoes of like gathering in social spaces. I'd love for us to just nail that down.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I was going to take a minute to plug some of our friends over at Multidim, because I feel like they do a fantastic job of like pushing that a little bit with like not just the music, but like the concept of what a show looks like. And when they've curated those shows in the park, like I don't remember what they call them, but like
the listening lawns.
Yeah, the listening lawn. That's the one. You know, that's like that's like totally that sort of vibe that you're talking about, and I can't wait to see that either. And I think, you know, you and I have talked about this plenty of times, but like pushing that both with amplified personas, but more so with Holy Moonlight Blade here, and like what it means to actively listen to something is fantastic, you know? I think that's a great segue into a question that I've been thinking about wanting to ask you here is like, what are your hopes and goals for Holy Moonlight Blade, if any? I know you were talking about the scene and the idea of shows and stuff, but any hopes for like music or releases or any of that?
I don't know. World domination. No.
Pinky in the brain style.
Right? You will listen to noise. No, I do have like a performance in mind now that like I've been sitting with the music for a little bit. I've like thought about what a performance could look like and how I like it could incorporate different things I do, like drag or just performance art and like the, I guess, visual elements of like what could be Holy Moonlight Blade. And I just am just barely now starting to think about that aspect of like the world building. So the only thing that is for sure cemented, and I just got the flyer to like today, January 30th, there will be a show that I'll be playing at D3 Westwood here in Denver. And that's March 1st. That's going to be with Dagger Wound, Beauty Supply, and my good friend Sicktisk. And I'm performing some stuff from the EP, and then I'm performing some other weird stuff. So it's not like a release show or anything, but it's a cool thing. It'll be fun.
Yeah,
and
that's a great way to catch you out in the wild. It sounds like, you know, experience like pieces of what you've curated here, IRL, so to speak.
Yeah, it'll be cool. I kind of half built this set already, and it's exciting. It's really live, so like you'll only hear these specific sounds like there, because there's really not a way for me to replicate it. So it's like a proper noise show. It'll be fun. And hopefully after that, if I don't like mess it up, there'll be more. And there'll be, I want to do a music video. Like I have some things planned to kind of like milk the rollout for the EP, but there's a lot of music. There's so much music. So I have to kind of like get back to the drawing board and just figure out how I'm going to get it all out there to y'all.
Totally. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, unfortunately, we are running a little tight on time here, so I was just going to say, is there anything else besides, you know, announcing this show that's sort of coming up or following you, listening to the new EP and stuff? Is there anything else you want the listeners on Platte Valley PVLP to know right now?
You can follow me on social media.
What are some great places to find you, I suppose?
Yeah, I'm still on Instagram for now. We're holding out. But you can, Holy Moonlight Blade is like, there's like a private Instagram that's just kind of like my personal. You can follow that if you want to. I'll follow back. It's just me being like weird. But my main Instagram account is aeonexit. It's like aeon_exit, and that's like the main music page. So I post about everything there. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm on TikTok for now. All on aeonexit. And I think, on Bandcamp. Just visit my Bandcamp. Like Bandcamp is kind of the place. You can subscribe. You can like be part of like the little messages that I post on there. I'm on Patreon. If you guys want to really be generous and get into that, that would be awesome. And just listen to the music. It's out everywhere, so there's no excuse.
Yep, it's on Bandcamp. We definitely push people there because Bandcamp, even though they got bought out or are a bigger company, they are one of the better ones to musicians, and they do focus with the musician in mind. So we try to steer people that way. If you have any issues finding, you know, Aeon or Holy Moonlight Blade through Bandcamp, you can always look up Amplified Personas, and that will redirect you to all of our artists, including Aeon themselves here, and any other products they have. I highly recommend listening to their back catalog. There is some phenomenal stuff in there. And I know there are some phenomenal things in the works, which I cannot share with you yet, but they will be happening at some point. And that is something that I highly advise you keep up with. But
Yeah. Likewise for the Amplified Personas page. Just stay tuned, Y'all keep your ear to the ground. There's some cool stuff happening.
There is, it's happening. It's not visible, but it's happening. It's something, Yeah, so for anyone who caught the tail end of that interview, my name is Skyler. I'm the founder of a little something called Amplified Personas, and here with me I have had my good friend Aeon. They just released a little EP called Faux Control under their project name Holy Moonlightblade. It's an aggressive ambient dynamic drone, experimental sort of stuff, and very, very interesting, but give it a listen and check it out. I also want to say one last thank you to Kyle and Platte Valley Long, aka PVLP, here for supporting not just Amplified Personas, but Holy Moonlightblade specifically, and giving us some space to share these sorts of things. With that, give the EP a listen. Check it out. Use your ears to enjoy. I don't know. Active listen. But thanks so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for hopping on this interview with me right now. I really appreciate our chats as always, of course.
Yeah, no, it's always a pleasure. Thank you, Sky, and thank you, Kyle. Yeah, this has been great. I really appreciate the opportunity and the time. So get out there and Holy Moonlight Blade it up, y'all.
Yeah, use those ears for the power of good or something.
That's it. That's the tagline. Use ears for good.
Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. We've got some good stuff on PVLP coming up next, and we will catch you around the internet.